Hello, welcome back to Tax Exempt Millionaire Club, where we share all tips and knowledge about how to realize your tax-free. Have you think about becoming a millionaire? I'm sure everyone wants that. Welcome back to Tax Exempt Millionaire Club, a school community. I'm your host, Jane. Let's take a look at a question I got. Let me share the screen so we can do the presentation. She wants to do the traditional IRA to Roth IRA conversion. We will talk about why we need to consider that, what you need to do, and the thinking process. We call it converting a traditional IRA to a Roth IRA. It is a strategic move. Why? Because we want our money to grow tax-free inside this bucket labeled Roth. I'm using Roth IRA in a general tone. It can be Roth IRA, Roth 401k if your company is generous enough to set up that Roth option for you when you put the 401k money. It can be Roth 401 solo 401k for people who are solo entrepreneur, you don't have any employee under you. Let's talk about a lot of different things we need to think when we are thinking about the conversion. First, let's start with why. Why we need to consider a Roth conversion. There's so many benefits of Roth IRA. Tax-free growth because we put the tax after tax money into Roth IRA. All the growth from your base, all the growth will be tax-free. On the contrary, for traditional IRA, you put tax-free money, which meaning the tax you deduct from that year, it's a tax-free money, you put it in, and all the growth will be tax deferred until you start withdrawing. When you start withdrawing money from your traditional IRA, every single dollar is taxable. It also applies to this Roth conversion. Every single dollar you move from traditional IRA to Roth IRA, you have to pay personal income tax in that year when you did the conversion. So tax-free growth. The second one is withdrawal flexibility. There is a 59.5 penalty. It means individual retirement account. IRS doesn't want you to put the money aside and start consuming it, withdraw it at early age. 59.5 is still the age which you can withdraw without any penalty. Before 59.5, you will have to pay 10%. No RMD. RMD stands for Requirement Minimum Distribution. For traditional IRA, because the money is never taxed, IRS want their share at certain age of you. So they have this rule for minimum distribution. It was 70.5 right now. They moved it to 72 years old. So once you turn to 72, it's a complicated process and calculation based on how much you have. Every year, there's a dollar amount you have to take from that account to pay the tax to Uncle Sam. Long-term growth because it's a retirement account, right? We want to move the money into it, let it grow tax-free in the Roth IRA account, and we can maximize our saving over time at our retirement age. Let's talk about Roth conversion. Obviously, it's you moved money from traditional IRA to Roth. As I just mentioned, every single dollar you have to pay tax. So there's a tax consequences on the conversion, how much you pay. It really depends on your tax bracket. It actually will increase your AGI, adjusted gross income. To say you move 50,000, you add up 50,000 to your gross income that year. Tax bracket impact. That means if you're in this 28%, if you move X dollar from traditional IRA to Roth, the conversion may bump you up to the next tax bracket. So that's something to consider. Because of those two tax impact as well as the tax bracket impact, there are some ways you should think about how much you want to move. You only want to transfer within your same tax bracket, because if you look at the tax bracket, there's a pretty big range in especially the later tax bracket. You probably want to transfer within your tax bracket. You don't go to the next one. Another strategy you could think about will be transfer the same amount just to move. Just say you have 100K here and you don't want to do too much tax burden. You can do 5 years, or you can do 2 years, or even 10 years. Every year it's the same concept of dollar cost averaging. You just do the exact same amount every year. So it will increase your tax liability in that year, but only a small amount. You will not have a 100K additional income you have to pay in that year. A third potential strategy will be you transfer the amount you feel comfortable to pay when you or your household, if you marry fine jointly, have little lower income, or someone may lost a job or something happened this year, your income is much lower. In that case, you probably won't have a lot of tax liabilities, but that is a good year to add some income tax, so you are still paying less tax compared to your regular years, if you can understand this logic behind it. Timing and restrictions. Timing is very important. IRS specifically mentioned it's December 31st every year. If you want to do the conversion, you cannot do it in January up to April. You can do the regular contribution up to that tax deadline, but for the conversion, you have to do by the December 31st within that calendar year. You can start the process with your IRA provider. We'll mention a few of the well-known providers for in the IRA space. Also, you probably want to have a plan instead of just say, oh, someone mentioned that's a good thing, I should do it, let me just do it. You probably want to have a plan and see what is your current situation, how much money you have saved up because you have to pay tax on that amount of money, how much you feel comfortable. Utilize some of the potential strategies we mentioned prior. Talk to a financial advisor, a CPA. We are just sharing our thoughts, our knowledge here. No legal and tax advice. Is Roth IRA conversion right for you? We mentioned a few things. Just you need to pay attention to your tax bracket. You need to really set up the goals, set up the plan, and also assess what and how much you can pay. You want to think about the future of the money. You want to pay the tax on the seed or on the tree. Now let's talk about different steps. First, let's talk about the steps to convert to your Roth IRA. Read, research, and do some digging. Know why you need to do it, how much you need to pay, tax consequences, and then how you actually can do it. The next step will be consult to especially your CPAs or any other financial advisors you work with to see if it is the right time for you, if it's the right thing for you to do, what's the strategy or method you want to do this conversion. Choose the provider. I listed some of the most famous providers: Fidelity, Charles Schwab, Vanguard. A lot of banks can set up IRA as well. Just initiate, you need to know how much you want to transfer. You probably want to talk to them and either walk into a branch and talk to some representative, or put someone on the phone to really walk you through, especially the first time, because you don't want to touch the money. When I say touch the money, meaning you can take the money from Traditional IRA, mail a check to your address within a limited amount of time. If I'm not mistaken, 60 days, you move that to Roth IRA. You don't want to do that. You can, in theory, do that, but we highly suggest you just do the converting. Just tell them, I want to transfer 10,000 from traditional IRA to Roth IRA. Everything is documented. You will never touch the money. Now let's talk about the steps you need to do to convert from traditional to Roth. You need to do the research, understand the process, understand the tax complications, also save the money to pay the tax next year. Consult F, consult, talk to your CPA, talk to any financial advisors you work with, and see if this is the right time for you. If this is the right year, you should do the contribution. Choose a provider. If you don't have one already, talk to different providers. I listed some of the famous providers: Fidelity, Vanguard, Charles Schwab. Actually, a lot of banks, they offered IRA as well. If you don't have one, go talk to them and find the one you feel comfortable with to open an account. Initiate the transfer. At this time, you already know how much you want to do, and then you are meeting the deadline to do the conversion. Just say, if you don't know, you did the transfer in 2020. If you meet the deadline, just say you transfer it January 20th. You thought you could do it before April 15th. That conversion be reflecting in your 2025 tax return. Taking charges of your financial future. We mentioned few important things. To me, Roth IRA is one of the best vehicle we should have in our retirements. To me, Roth IRA is one of the most retirement vehicle we should have. Everybody should have one. We mentioned the deadline. You have to meet December 31st for this year's conversion. 59 and a half, that's the minimum withdrawal age without 10% penalty imposed by the IRS. 0% tax. Once the money in, think about once you flow your money into this bucket, all the money grows in. Think about this way. If you flow the money into this bucket, all the money which you could generate from this bucket, you will never worry about the personal income tax again, which is the most advantageous. RMD is a little bit complicated. It was 70 and a half. I believe a few years ago, it was moved up to 72. It's a little bit complicated. There's also the calculation, there's a penalty. The penalty is 50%. If your minimum requirement distribution that year is, say, 10,000, you don't know that, you have to surpass that number. You can transfer $10,001. But if you transfer 9,000, 50% will be charged, which is the 10,000 times 50%, 5,000. That's a penalty from IRS, which you need to pay attention to. And remember, a lot of people get confused about rollover. There's another terminology, backdoor Roth IRA especially. We will do another episode because we don't want this video to be too long. But we will get a detailed explanation about those terminologies. The backdoor IRA is a hot topic because a lot of people, they're not eligible to fund the traditional IRA or Roth IRA. They are so-called phased out. So we will cover the difference, the eligibility, the tax implications of each of those strategies. So stay tuned. If any of the topic we shared so far interests you, you want to talk to us, feel free to contact us. I'm the manager of Altus Lending Consulting LLC. I have my calendar link here. I also have this school community, which we share all the knowledges and tips about getting to your tax exempt $1 million. Actually surpass that to multiple $1 million, and then pass it down to your next generations. So stay tuned for a future episode. I hope you will come back and spend some time with us. See you at the school community. Join us and happy investing. Bye.